Today's program is brought to you on behalf of the LAER Safety Committee. We have a team of great real estate agents who do meet once a month as part of our safety committee to find different ways to bring safety to the great agents of LAER. And with that, we have an exciting speaker. Today we have with us Bob Rockwood. He is the author of a book called Beauty Products Can Be Ugly: The Hype, the Lies, the Dangers. It is a must-read manual for anyone applying skin and or beauty products to their body. So I will say that I read this book probably about a year ago. And at first, I don't wear a lot of makeup in general. And so I was like, oh, really not for me. I don't think it's really going to apply to me. And I read just the first couple of pages of Bob's book, and I ended up finishing it within a day. Because right at the beginning, it talked even just about sunscreen. And when we talk about sunscreen, for me, I think about my daughter. And after I read that, I said, I'll never put that sunscreen on her again. I'm poisoning my daughter. So it's an unbelievable read. We'll have Bob tell us where you can get a copy of the book so you can dig in if you're interested in exploring further. But with that, we have Bob with us, who's going to talk to us about what we need to know about stuff we put on our skin. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you. Welcome to you also. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak to your associates. And I really look forward to giving out some information that I don't think is readily available anywhere else. I know originally we were going to run this last month. And let me start off with this too, that I'll talk and go on with what some of the thoughts I have about skincare. But obviously, if you or anybody else, if there's a question, Stacy, you can just cut me off and ask me the question and make sure that I go in the direction you want.
Yeah. So if you're on the live program, you can type your questions right into the chat box. And by the way, if you're watching the recorded version of this program, you can reach out directly to Bob at info@replenishplus.com. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, thank you again, Stacy, and hello to everybody else that's looking or will be looking in the future. Originally, we were going to run this last month because it was breast cancer month, and skincare products, and we'll get into it, unfortunately, cause some of that breast cancer that's out there. But let me just a couple of statistics that I thought was interesting, and a piece of information that I picked up about breast cancer I thought was interesting. Unfortunately, breast cancer, there's about 300,000 new cases per year. And it's one of the fastest growing cancers, about 0.5% per year. Unfortunately, 45,000 women will die from breast cancer this year. And the only good aspect is the number of deaths are declining because women are going in and getting themselves examined earlier, and the method of dealing with breast cancer has improved. But here's the thing that's really startling to me, is only 10% of breast cancer cases are caused by genetic factors. In other words, 90% of the breast cancer is because of things that women, because they get most of breast cancer, obviously, although men get some breast cancer, but it's a very small percentage. Women get the breast cancer, and it's what they do to their own bodies that cause or certainly initiate the breast cancer. One interesting thing I found out, a study was done and a research clinic study was done. It was done both by the National Institute of Health and Marshall University, which is a research university out of West Virginia. They found that by eating 2 ounces of walnuts a day, that you can reduce your chances of getting breast cancer by up to 30 to 50%. And if you already have breast cancer, eating those walnuts can actually slow down or even stop the growth of the tumor based on the studies that they've done. It's been done over a number of years. So that aside, let us talk a little about the skin first. Okay, we're going to be talking about skin care, but so we understand that our skin is our largest organ. on our body. It represents up to 15% of our total weight. And we have 3 layers of skin. We have an epidermis, a dermis, and a hypodermis. The epidermis is what you see when you look at somebody. And what's interesting, the epidermis is mostly made up of dead cells. You know, in most cases, when you die, you go into the ground. In the case of your skin, when the cell dies, it comes up to the surface. So virtually 90% of our skin that we're looking at are dead cells, which are, after a while they foliate. And I know some people put on, things that cause the foliation. In fact, a lot of dust in your house is because of the millions of cells that are coming off your body every single day. And actually your skin is the one organ in your body that renews itself. It's the only organ that does it. And so about every 27 to 28 days, you have brand new skin. The skin cells that die come up to the surface, exfoliate off the body, and underneath, new cells are constantly being formulated by the body to replace it. So you have an epidermis, which is the thinnest layer. It's about paper thin. That's what we see on the surface. The dermis underneath the epidermis is the thickest layer of skin, and that's where all the energy is. That's where all the fibroblast cells, which make your collagen, all the things that energize your body, are sitting in the dermis, which is actually your thickest layer of skin. Then underneath that dermis, underneath the dermis, is the hypodermis. And the hypodermis is made up basically of connective tissues, fat, and blood flow. Your skin is connected to every organ in your body. So when you do something bad to your skin, you're not just affecting your skin. Maybe it'll show up, in redness, or, you have a reaction to it. Maybe you'll see that. But what's more of concern is the fact that allergic reactions of the skin, breaking down the skin, directly flow into other organs of your body. So your skin, remember, there's a function to your skin that no other organ does. The skin is your protective barrier. It's the against mechanical and thermal and physical energy. It's the first thing that hits you, hazardous substances. And it prevents the loss of moisture, and it reduces the harmful effects of the sun. I mean, when I say reduce it, it's the thing that sees it. And that's actually part of the aging process. And it acts as a sensory organ. In other words, touch and temperature all comes through your skin. So it's a really important part of your body. And you want to take care of it. And so now let's go to the next thing. How did I even get into this? I'm not the most beautiful guy. I know a lot of people mix me up with Tom Cruise, but the thing is that, why did I get into this? Well, I got into this because for 30 years, I was selling chemical processing equipment. I hold about 300 patents in chemical processing equipment, and I was traveling 45 countries for 30 years. And yes, my chemical processing equipment, I sold to the Monsantos and the Bayers and the Mobiles and the Exxons. I sold to them, but unfortunately, one of the biggest chemical company criteria are actually the skincare industry. So I was selling to the L'Oreals, the Revlons, all the large companies and a lot of the smaller companies. And after 30 years, because I was doing basically the processing of setting that up, I was dealing with the processing people and I was dealing with the formulators. And I got an education over 30 years that was kind of scary, okay? Because what I started realizing, the reason they were buying, here's what was interesting. They were buying my product because my chemical processing equipment, mixers, pumps, whatever, they were leak proof. Now, when you have a chemical plant, you're concerned about the EPA and OSHA. OSHA is concerned about chemicals getting onto the workers in the plant, and the EPA, of course, is concerned about the atmosphere around the plant. So they needed leak-proof pumps. Now that should make you think right off the bat, why do you need leak-proof pumps? What's so dangerous in there? And it was because of the chemicals that go into every skincare product, or most of them. So they had to protect their workers. They had to protect the atmosphere. But once that skincare product goes into the bottle, regardless of what's in it, there are no more FDA regulations. There are no government regulations anywhere. So they can put virtually anything they want into the skincare product and nobody regulates it. Nobody looks at it and says you can't do this. In fact, the United States, unfortunately, of all the countries in the world, or certainly the first world countries, they are the worst at protecting you, the user. There are approximately 30,000 chemicals, 3,000 very popular chemicals that go into skincare products. In the United States, only 11 of those chemicals are banned. In China, in Europe, 1,100 to 1,200 of those chemicals are banned. We've got 11, they've got 1,100. What really gets me is I was selling through skincare companies overseas that had their manufacturing facilities overseas. And the product they were making, they couldn't sell in the country that they were making it because it was banned. But they could ship it to us in the United States. It's something, you know, when I was a kid, I smoked when I was a kid. I don't smoke anymore, but when I was a kid, I started smoking. Unfortunately, I was about 9 years old. All right, and the reason I'm probably much older than anybody that's watching this right now. But the thing is, when I was a kid, I watched TV, and they had the Marlboro man, you know, on his horse, and he was smoking Marlboros, and he had a horse. In my mind, as a kid, I thought, gee, if I smoked, I could get a horse. So I started smoking when I was very young. I used to steal cigarettes out of my father's package, and I had another little friend that we used to do it with. And the thing was, but even at that stage, we still called them cancer sticks. It was the worst held secret in the world. Everybody knew how bad cigarettes were for you. Skincare industry has done a marvelous job in hiding that general knowledge. It is one of the best kept secrets. Actually, skincare products are probably more harmful to your body than cigarettes are, especially women who put on skincare products. The average amount of chemicals you put on your body every day between your lipstick, and by the way, lipstick, you know how they ban lead in houses? You are real estate agents. You know, if they have lead on the walls, you know, there's big problems. You have to disclose it, whatever. Lipsticks contain up to 10 times the amount of lead that paint does. So it's okay to put it on your lips and lick it. That's okay. There's no FDA regulations on that, but you can't put it on your wall. I mean, it's insanity. So, but between the lipsticks, the rouge, the makeup, the hair dyes, the shampoos, the conditioners, all those things you put on your body on average, mostly every day, comes to about 150 to 200 chemicals per day that the average woman puts on her body. And no regulation. That is something that all of us should be concerned about. And that's what got me into this business. When I saw that for 30 years, I first started formulating skincare products and really delving into it, not because I wanted to start a company, but because I wanted to protect the women in my family. Most of my family is made up of women. I had 2 sisters. My cousins are 80% women. Most of my friends were women. So the thing was, I started formulating because I knew there was something better that could be done. And I wrote this book in order to inform. So you, the end user, because it's really one of the great hidden secrets, you, the end user, could get some information on this. And even if you never buy one of my products, that certainly is your choice. But please, please, please be very cautious of what you put on your skin, because that's where the reason of breast cancer being growing. It's not just because of skincare. Processed foods is the same thing. It's all those ingredients and chemicals we constantly put into our body. That's what we want to stop. And that's what's important that we do stop. Now, the skincare, understand the FDA, under a law that was passed in 1933, are forbidden to regulate the skincare industry. And so they don't. Now, one of the reasons, there's probably a whole bunch of reasons that occurs, but the FDA and the CDC, a lot of people don't realize they are funded by guess who? Not the government. The government does some of their funding, but 50 to 60% of all the funding of the FDA comes from pharmaceutical companies, skincare companies, anybody selling chemicals. So you've got the fox watching the chickens, and it's just insanity, but it's the way it is. In fact, the only chemicals, the way chemicals are determined whether they are safe to put into a skincare product, there's an organization called the CIR. They are the Chemical Ingredient Review Board. Guess who funds them 100%? Oh, I know, the skincare industry. And the Chemical Ingredient Review Board, or the CIR, they do not have to disclose any of their clinical testing, what they do, how much money they spend on it, nothing of that. In fact, you can't even find it. But the skincare industries will say, this is safe, that's safe, this amount is safe. What I get a kick on, when skincare companies say, well, this ingredient is very toxic for you, but if you only put it on in a small amount, this is called the safe amount, then you can put it on. Unfortunately, you don't put it on one day, you put it on 365 days, you put it on for 20 years. There's a thing called bioaccumulative effect. So it's just like maybe 1/10 of 1 millimeter of arsenic is safe. But if I put it on for 30 years, I'm still not going to put it on my body anyhow, because I know at the end of the 30 years it accumulates. That's the same like with cigarettes. It isn't like you got cancer the first day. It took 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. The younger you start putting on skincare products, the more toxic they are to your body, and the more they cause you the problems that we're talking about. So let us look at a couple of things here when we talk about the skincare products and what's going in there, okay? Remember, the skincare industry is driven by the worst of all things. They're driven by the bottom line. Everybody, look, real estate agents, I don't care what industry you're in, of course, you want to make money. That's why you're doing it. I understand that. And that is, certainly as a real estate agent, people that are watching this, I assume most of you are, you want to get as many sales as you want to. Of course. I want to get as many sales for my company as I want to. But there are two ways to drive a company and drive a thought process. One is, my goal is the money. And when the goal is the money, you have a tendency to do things that aren't so good with a consumer. In other words, when you're selling a house, of course, you want to get the most for your lister because you make more money on it. And if you're representing the buyer, you want to get the most for the same reason. But if your drive is not to sell the house for the money, but if your drive is to really satisfy that client of yours, you will get a reference, you will get more people, you will get an increase on sales. I believe the same thing in selling skincare products. I want to make the profit, but I want to do what's right and not what's hype. And that's what we're trying to do here. As opposed to the skincare industry. The skincare industry, because they're driven by money, there are certain things they follow. One is, any of you who are using skincare products right now, go and take a look at your bottle that you're using. I'll guarantee you in 90 to 95% of the cases, the first ingredient is water. Oh, they'll call it water. They'll call it aqua. They'll call it distilled water. They'll even call it aloe vera, which is 90% water. All the same thing. Water is the number one ingredient. You say to yourself, why is water the number one ingredient? Well, we'll visit that in a minute. But remember one thing, that, and I'll say this up front, water is the most toxic ingredient sitting in a skincare product. I'll explain that in a minute. Because some of you are saying, water, this guy, let's shut off this program, something's wrong with him. No, that's what it is, and I'll explain it in a minute. Because money is the driving force, chemicals are added in place of certainly organic, whole food sources of ingredients, because chemicals are much cheaper than certainly organic, Mother Nature products. And don't be fooled by the word when people say, gee, my product is all natural. All natural, by the way, petroleum is natural. Okay, so if I make it from petroleum, I can say all natural. And also, there's nothing really governing what they can say on the bottle. Even when they say organic, they can say my product's organic. Well, as long as it's got one little dib of organic in there and 99% chemicals, you can still say it's organic. You may not be able to put the USDA, logo on it, but you can call it organic. I remember when I started, I didn't want to start my own company, and I went to other companies. I had developed my skincare line, and I went to other companies, and I was going to see if I could license it and get other people to sell it, whatever. And it was amazing when I went to them because I only have 9 ingredients and 9 products. And one of my products you can use in the morning, you can use it day, you can use it at night. And I went to these companies, they say, gee, you don't have a lot of products. And I said, well, no, because this product will basically, you can use it in the morning, you can use it at night, whatever. Well, we need SKUs. I didn't even know what SKUs was. I thought they were saying something bad to me. But SKUs basically it's the number of each product. And the more products they have, the more shelf space they can demand and command in stores. And that's what it's all about. So you go in and you see day creams, anti-aging creams, wrinkling creams, night creams. I mean, the purpose is get you to buy as many products as possible. But if you stop to think about it for a minute, why don't you just take the product that does the best? If it's anti-wrinkling, can't you use it for everything else? And why do you have to have a product in the morning? And why do you have the product at night? Let me tell you, one of the reasons you do is because the night product contains harsher chemicals like a retinol A. And because retinol A, when exposed to the sun, is really harmful to the skin. So they'll drop it in at night. Let me tell you, you don't want to use it at any time because it's a synthetic and it's not good for the skin. We'll get into that a little more as we go in there. And also remember one thing. At night, that's when your body repairs itself. When you're sleeping and your body's at rest and you're not doing a lot of stuff, that's when the body says, okay, I'm going to repair. I'm going to reinvigorate. I'm going to do whatever I can to get the body. So when you wake up in the morning, you're going to feel as good as possible. And I'm going to restore maybe some things that broke down during the day. If you put a chemical on your body at night during the restoration period, the body sees an invasion. And when it sees that invasion, instead of repairing your body, a portion of those little restoration soldiers, they run over to protect your body from the chemical invasion. So when you put on a skincare product at night that contains chemicals, you're actually slowing down your own body's restoration process. It's the worst thing you can do. So and you don't need it. They do extensive processing because they want to mix the chemicals. They got a whole bunch of chemicals in there. And by the way, if you look at the end of your box and you see, 40 chemicals or 40 ingredients, that should trigger in your mind right away, whoa, how come there are so many? Because I got this little jar that's 1.7 ounce, right, 50 milliliters. How much, if it's the 40th ingredient, how much of that is sitting in the jar? And especially if you remember, water is the first ingredient. Water comprises between 40 to 75% of that jar. You only got maybe 25% of ingredients. You got 40 ingredients. I'll tell you, that last ingredient isn't doing anything of any substance. You wouldn't make a chocolate cake that required 60 ingredients. You say, this is a little bit of insanity. Why would you do it in a skincare product? Why? Because they need some ingredients, something to counteract the other ingredient, to counteract the other chemical, to counteract the other chemical. It's insanity, but it's the way it's done. So as a result, they need extensive processing. And processing, that's where the hidden ingredients are. And we'll discuss that in a little more detail in a minute. But just remember, just like processed food, you don't want to put processed food into your body because the processing is where the chemicals are made. The hidden, and they do not have to list processing chemicals on the side of that box or jar. So the worst chemicals, 1,4-dioxane, some of the parabens, some of the phthalates. Though those are never listed, and those, by the way, are the things that really help, well, let's say, initiate or concern about breast cancer. Those are never listed because they're processing chemicals. They're not formulation chemicals. Scary. Then the other thing they do is they use plastic jars. They use that for a couple of reasons. One is they're cheap. Right? The other thing is you can make really fancy shapes with the jars. Right? Well, the problem is this. You know, some people say, well, I got BPA-free plastic. And I know when you go into the food store, it's BPA-free. Well, let me tell you, when you get BPA-free, they have to do something. They have to substitute something. So they substitute BPA-C or S or one of 200 other ingredients. And those have been found that they're worse than BPA, okay? And BPA generates basically phthalates. That's why they wanted to get it out. And phthalates, by the way, is found in 90% of breast cancer tumors. So the thing is, that's why you don't want the BPA. But if you do get rid of the BPA and you put in BPC or whatever, you're still getting there. And they know that. They shouldn't be using plastic jars, especially when you think about this. If that jar you got is fancy, and especially if it has a small nozzle on it, you know, like a squeeze bottle or whatever, how do you fill that? Well, you fill it by having, even if it's a cream, by having it in liquid form. You heat it. Most those skincare products you buy that are creams, when they're filling the jars, they've been heated to about 165 degrees Fahrenheit, which, by the way, is the same temperature as processed food, or I'm sorry, pasteurized food. That's why you really got to be concerned about pasteurization, because what happens is at 165 degrees, you are cooking out all the good stuff. The vitamins are being cooked out. The bioflavonoids are being cooked out. The nutrients, the enzymes are being cooked out. At about 118 degrees is where that starts. You bring it up to 165 degrees, even if you have good stuff in that jar, it's all been cooked out and altered. And now they fill the jars because the cream's in liquid form. They pour it into that plastic jar. You pour 165 degree liquid into a plastic jar, it's leaching, and it's leaching right into that skincare product. So that skincare product in most cases contains the BP whatever, or one of 200 other chemicals that are in that plastic. They're right in that skincare product, and that certainly is never listed. BPA, by the way, like I'm not going to pronounce it correctly, but BPA is, phthalates are basically used in fact, if you wear a fragrance, you got phthalates. Phthalates are very harmful to the body and also a precursor to breast cancer, as well as other cancers. But they never have to list the phthalate if they list fragrance. If you buy a skincare product that says fragrance, stay away from it. Fragrance on average has 200 toxic chemicals built into it. The reason phthalates are in there, which are bad for your body, but the reason they put it into fragrances is because it's sticky. It's a plasticizer. That's why it's used in plastic. It's sticky. So if you spray on perfume, they want that perfume to stick and stay as long as possible on your skin so you get the aroma. Phthalates is the sticky, okay? It's also the thing that goes into your skin and is harmful to you. So you don't want to heat, you don't want plastic jars, you're concerned about the formulation, but all of these are done because they're cheap and dirty. For example, my company, we fill all our jars with salt. The cream is solid. It's never brought to a temperature over 65 degrees. But if you're a large company and you're filling thousands of jars, you liquefy. And that's what's going onto your skin. So that's some of the premise. We'll get back to this water and the rest of it in a minute because that's important that you understand it. Recognize that your skin, what we're saying is, the three layers that are in there, the epidermis, that top layer, that's the one that gets attacked immediately. But the thing is, the epidermis is actually a protective barrier. So when you put on skincare products, like they tell you, oh, we got water is the first ingredient. Well, you know, the reason when you go into the ocean or you go into a bath or something and you don't sink is because your skin stops water from going in. That's what it's there for. It's to protect the barrier. So if anybody says, gee, I put water on there because it's a moisturizer, for one thing, water is not a moisturizer. It's the exact opposite. I'll explain that in 1 minute. But the thing is, as I said, your skin is your barrier. When you put on skin products, skincare products, your skin's first reaction is to stop the flow into the body. But the small chemicals, depending on the molecular structure, that will pass into the skin. And if it's active, will pass into the skin. And that's true when you're formulating, like when I formulate a product and I don't have any chemicals, I have to make sure there's some activator, but it's a Mother Nature activator. But it will pass into your skin. On average, the toxic chemicals that are small micron size will go from the surface of your skin into your bloodstream in between 26 to 28 seconds. So now you're really doing stuff to your body you don't want to do. So I said earlier that water is the most dangerous chemical in a skincare product. Well, the reason water is the most dangerous chemical is because when they add water, they have to do 3 things to it, because water doesn't mix with oil. Okay? Water is runny, right? And water is bacteria, the worst bacteria in the world needs water to grow. So they need strong preservatives. So the first thing they have to do with the water is a process called emulsification. Emulsification is when you take the water and you chemically alter it through an emulsion process. That means adding chemicals to it, adding heat to it, processing it, so that you break down the molecular structure of the water to a form that it can adhere to oil. That's emulsification. Otherwise, the water would just come out of solution. So, because in that jar, they have to have some kind of oil, whether it's synthetic or natural or organic, whatever. If you're going to do some moisturization, you have to have some form of oil. So they emulsify the water. The emulsification breaks down the water, so yes, it can join with the oil components inside the skincare product. But now you put it on your skin. Your body is constantly producing basically some of its own oils and moisture. And the thing is, when you put this emulsified water onto your skin, what you are doing is you're now putting water that can now join with the oils on your own skin. And as a result of that, when you join with the oils on when the water goes onto your skin and actually combines with the oils on the surface of the skin, now you go wash your face or wash your hands or take a shower. You are now taking this emulsified water that joined with your natural oils, and you're washing off your own self-moisturizing great oils for the body. And how the body reacts when it starts losing oil, its own natural oil, it produces more. And this is what can cause acne, rosacea, redness of the skin, because now your body overcompensates because you're depleting it of its natural oils that it wants to do. The emulsified water is adding to that. So that's one reason I say that it's toxic. The second reason is water has to be thickened up. Because if I have 70% water sitting in a jar and I'm selling you a cream, or even if I'm selling you a serum, I don't want it just to run out like a glass of water. I have to thicken it. The thickening agents are never listed because they're not part of the formula. They're part of the processing. Thickening agents that are used, they use all kinds of thickening agents inside it. But one of them that's used is a thing called Ripafix, which unfortunately contains arsenic. So that's one of the things that you're adding to the skincare product because you want to thicken the water. Another thing is silica is very common. Silica thickens the water, but it also has been found to cause lung cancer. And another thing is another thickening agent as magnesium aluminum. Again, none of these are listed because they're all processing agents. And who wants to put aluminum on their body? You don't even want to cook with it, much less why do you want to put it in a form on your body directly? So the thickening agents are usually toxic, and they're also going straight onto your skin. Here becomes the worst problem. Oh, I should mention one thing else about the emulsifying agents. The emulsifying agents usually have a very low pH value. A high pH value. Your skin wants to be at about a pH of 4.5 to 5. The pH is just telling you how acidic or basic your skin is. When you're below 7, you're acidic. When you're above 7, it's base. Your skin is basically acidic, not strong acidic, but mildly acidic at 4.5 to 5. When you put on an emulsifying agent, it raises the acidic level and almost brings you into the base level. And so your skin, your body is constantly trying to correct to get it back to that 4.5. So your body is really working when you put the skin cream on you. Now, also some of the emulsifying agents are waxes, which start blocking your pores. Now, when it comes to the preservatives, here's the real problem with water. Because water is the precursor or the manufacturer or the holding medium for the worst bacteria on the earth, they have to put strong preservatives into the water, okay? Because otherwise that product would really go bad in a very short period of time. They want some shelf life, right? So they put a preservative in there, and the preservatives are usually one of three. One is parabens, right? Now, some companies will, if you skincare products, if you've been buying a lot of them, you might see on a box that says paraben free, might advertise that way. You might say, well, that's good, it's paraben free. Well, paraben, that's not all of them. Unfortunately, about 50% of the products still have parabens in them. Parabens are very, very harmful to the body. It screws up your endocrine system, and it's also a precursor to not only breast cancer, but all forms of cancer. But here's the problem: if you take out the parabens, okay, you have to put something else in. It's the same thing like BPA-free plastic. So paraben-free may not be as good as you think because they substituted something else in there, or they don't have as good of a resistance to bacteria formation. So paraben-free doesn't guarantee you anything. What really, I mean, your first thought should be is, why do I have chemicals in here? Okay, if I didn't have chemicals, I wouldn't need as many preservatives. I don't need all these preservatives. I don't need all these processing or whatever. So that should be your first concern. But that's really one of the problems with parabens is either you have it and it's bad, or you don't have it and they substituted something else, which can then also be just as bad. So that's where you want to be a little concerned. And another thing that are put in there in order to, as a preservative, is a thing called phthalates, which we talked about a little earlier. That's why they'll add it into fragrances. They don't want to list it as a phthalate, but and I'm saying phthalate, I think it's really pronounced tralate, but whatever it may be, it's PHLATETATES. But whatever it is, it begins with PHTHAETES. And I think they really pronounce it phthalates. I'm saying phthalates, but I'm pretty sure it's pronounced phthalates. The problem is the phthalates that are going in there also are a concern for breast cancer and all kinds of cancer. And even though we're talking about, I'm saying about breast cancer, you put toxins into your body. It's not just cancer that is your concern. I mean, that's the ultimate. Heart disease is the ultimate. But what you're doing is your body sees anything coming into it that is synthetic, they see it as an invasion. And your body works hard to get rid of the invasion, but it can't fight it all off. One thing, your body, for example, if you ever put petroleum, drank petroleum, your body can't get rid of petroleum. It can't break it down. And most 80% of chemicals come from petroleum. So you're putting chemicals into your body that your body can't get rid of. And that's why this, when I mentioned earlier the word bioaccumulative, because your body can't get rid of petroleum products, it can't break it down, it becomes worse of a problem. So over a year, 5 years, 10 years, that bioaccumulative effect is in there and your body gets worse and worse. And remember one thing about toxicity. Here's another thing that is just because there are two sexes and there is a difference between the two of us, even though some people are trying to say it's not, but it is. And thank God there is, because who wants all men? The thing is that as a woman, your body is more prone to toxicity than a man's because of 4 reasons. One reason is a woman's skin by nature is thinner than a man's, which is the reason that the wrinkling effect occurs more on women than it does on men. That doesn't mean we don't get wrinkling, but women, because of their thin skin, will see more of a wrinkling effect. And the wrinkling is for a couple of reasons, and we'll hit that in a minute. But so if it's thinner, then the chemicals can get through it faster. The second thing is a woman's liver and kidneys are smaller than a man's, mainly because of the size of the body in one sense, and they're not as efficient as a man's. Those are the 2 organs that get rid of toxins. So a woman's liver and kidneys is less efficient than a man's. And the 4th thing we get rid of toxins is in our stomach by acids, stomach acids. And a woman has less acid in their stomach than a man. So when a woman puts a toxic ingredient on their body, they are more prone to toxicity effects than a man. And this is what drives me nuts about this industry. What you think I'm telling you something that the leaders and the formulators of all these major companies don't know? Of course they know it. How sad that they, just like what do you think, the Marlboro didn't know that cigarettes gave you cancer? Of course they knew it. But again, when you're driven by money, as opposed to doing what's right, and then getting a money as a result of it, it brings you down a different road. And I just think it's wrong. I wish there was some kind of regulation, but it'll probably never happen in my lifetime. But this is where you've got to be very concerned. As a woman, you do put on more skincare products than a man. As a woman, you are more prone to toxic invasions than a man. As a woman, you are more prone to toxic results that are negative. In fact, a study was done by Mayo Clinic about 4 years ago, where they took, I think it was 3,000 women. You can look it up if you look up Mayo Clinic allergic reactions to skincare products. I'm sure you can find. But what the Mayo Clinic study found is that almost 70% of women that put on skincare products have an allergic reaction that they're not even aware about. Okay, because it's under the skin, it's in the organs. Allergic reaction means your body is being attacked. I mean, that's why you have an allergic reaction, and it's trying to fight back, and unfortunately, it doesn't always win. So that is well documented. Harvard University did a study, and you can look up Harvard University skincare products. I'm sure if you go on the website, you can find it. And they also found that skincare products, from a chemical point of view, are extremely destructive to a woman's body. And the EWG, the Environmental Working Group, also you can go on EWG.com and just look at how many chemicals are put onto a woman's body on the average day and how many dangerous chemicals there are. By the way, when you go to EWG, you can also list a chemical and it'll tell you how toxic it is. That's where you get the 150 to 200 chemicals per day going on there. This is so well known, so well understood, and so continuously done for year after year after year. So what I'm getting at is if you put water into a skincare product, You're putting emulsifying agents, which are harmful. You're putting thickening agents, which are harmful, and you're putting preservatives that are harmful. There is no reason to have water sitting in that bottle, except water is cheap and it increases the bottom line, especially if it's 70% of the bottle, it increases the bottom line of the manufacturer. Maybe there's some products you like, whatever, so you're going to continue. But from my point of view, I always tell people, if water is number one, it should be number last to go onto your body. You shouldn't do it. Water is indicative of high toxicity because of what they have to do to the water. And why are you putting water in your body? Your body is 65% water, 65 to 75% water. Do you think when you take that little finger and you dip it in, by the way, you shouldn't dip in your finger. Here's one place where maybe you want to use earbud or a small little spoon, because if you dip into the skincare product, any of the bacteria that's on your finger is going into the skincare product. You're better off taking it out with a small spoon or taking it out with a Q-tip or whatever. But when you go in there, that little amount you put on your skin, which is what, this small, your body, if you're a 100-pound woman, or you got 65 pounds of water in your body, do you think that this little bit of water is doing anything? It never does anything. When people are dying in the, because of in the deserts or something, because they don't have enough water, nobody runs over to them and pours water on them because it doesn't do anything. On your skin is resisting the passage of water and all the bad things we talked about before. So if you see water, your first thought should be, why do I have it in there? And the second thing is, when you see companies that don't claim that they don't test on animals, or they do, I guess your first reaction should be this: why does anything have to be tested on an animal? All right. If it's, and I love animals myself. I mean, to test on animals to me is cruelty beyond thought process, especially some of the things they do. But why do you test on an animal? That should tell you that who's ever manufacturing that product knows somewhere in here that there's something bad in there. And rather than kill my wife or a neighbor, let me kill a puppy or a rabbit. Okay. So if you're making a product that doesn't have toxic chemicals in it, that by itself tells you you never have to animal test. So if somebody's animal testing, yes, the first thought is, oh my God, what are they? That's disgusting what they're doing to the animals. The second thought should be, though, and maybe even the first thought, is if they're testing on animals, they know something's in there that's bad. Otherwise, they test it on their friend, their sister, their mother, whatever. So that is a big concern, and most skincare products are still tested on animals for exactly that reason. Not because they're afraid of the FDA, but they don't want to be sued by the end user. Remember, cigarette smoking, it was never stopped by the government. It was stopped by a class action suit of end users. The only way we're probably going to stop some of this with the skincare companies is if the same thing occurs, but it won't occur unless people are aware of the harmful effects that it's doing to their body. So all we're saying is this: be really, really careful of the ingredients that are on the side of the box. Water, number one, don't use it. And, and I know we're getting a little close to the end of the time here, so I'm going to rush just two other things. The skincare companies follow the hype, like they'll say there are some skincare products that hyaluronic acid, and that was the big thing for a while. Well, hyaluronic acid is basically the way they get rid of the wrinkles. If you ever saw an ad on TV, you ever see that ad, and the person, you got wrinkles here, and they put this little chemical on there, and look at it. Just 6 seconds later, the wrinkles are gone. Well, that ought to scare the heck out of you. How do you get rid of wrinkles in 6 seconds? It isn't being done naturally. You know the way it's done? It's called what they call plump and plug. They put a chemical in there. Hyaluronic acid is one of those. They put a chemical in your skin that swells up under the skin. Hyaluronic acid absorbs 1,000 times its weight in water. So if I put hyaluronic acid in my skin, it goes under, and now it swells up by absorbing water like a sponge. But if they allow the pores to stay open, right, then that will quickly evaporate and the hyaluronic acid will go down to a small size again. So what they have to do is they have to plug your pores. So there's chemicals sitting inside the skincare product. They have one chemical going in. They have another one that plugs your pores. That way the hyaluronic acid swells. And how does it swell? It grabs water from your hypodermis, your third layer of skin, which is depleting your body, and swells up. And of course, as soon as you wash your face and the pores open up, end of story. I get a kick out of these products that say, we have vitamin C. And everybody said, oh, vitamin C, that's great, an antioxidant. Well, the problem is, what you'll most see of vitamin C is ascorbic acid, which is man-made. Synthetic vitamin C is an antioxidant, which is what you want in your body to fight bacteria and fight damage to the cells. But the problem is man-made vitamin C, which is much cheaper than Mother Nature's vitamin C, which you have to squeeze oranges and which was what we do, a whole bunch of things. That's difficult. So let's put in cheap ascorbic acid. Problem with ascorbic acid is after 35 minutes, man does not know how to put enzymes into a vitamin. Enzymes is what holds the vitamin together. If you don't have enzymes, the vitamin breaks out. Vitamin C breaks down, ascorbic, synthetic vitamin C breaks down in approximately 30 minutes, and it becomes an oxidant. It actually increases the oxidation on your body. It's cheap to put in. I love these articles, these creams that have collagen. Oh, wow, collagen, I need that. That's the foundation of the body. I want to do that. Well, you get collagen by actually, if you get your skin cells healthy, they'll produce collagen. But the collagen they put into the skincare products, you'll notice it will say bovine in many cases. Bovine means the collagen is coming from cows or pigs. Let me say, if you had a heart transplant, you wouldn't want it coming from a pig. So it doesn't work. So just be careful of the hype. That's what we're trying to get to. Okay. Did you have something you wanted to ask, Stacey?
Yes. We do have a couple of questions. First, we have one agent that said, all right, what do we use now that you've scared us off of every product out there?
Well, not every, hopefully. There are products, just look at the ingredient list and just be careful, less ingredients. Don't do an anhydrous. I mean, I could say use my product, okay, which I'd love you to use, but I'm not the only one in the world. And by the way, I'll just point in one thing, and maybe you can send it out to them, Stacey, because of LAER and agreement with Stacey to do this. If you go to replenishplus.com, my products are all here anhydrous. There are no chemicals, no water, really healthy. You can buy the product with a 20% discount if, when you check out, just type in where the code will give you a code. Just type in LAER20 and you'll get a 20% discount. So yes, one of the products will be mine, but there are others out there that you'll just make sure that when you're looking at a product, that it has the least amount of chemicals on there and that it's truly Mother Nature. That's what you want to look at, right? So that's one way. Yes.
All right. The other question that we had is, and I think there's so many of them, I don't know if it's possible to narrow it down. Is there any way to look at an ingredient list and say, like, if you see this word, don't touch it?
Well, there are some things you don't want to touch. If it has a serif, E-T-H-Y-M at the end of it, oleth, O-L-E-T-H at the end of it. Those are chemicals that usually have the most toxic effect. But I always tell people this: if you see an ingredient and you never heard of it before, and it's, which means it's not a natural whatever, it should give you second thought. One thing you could do is go to a website called skindeep.com, skindeep.com. That will allow you to type in the name of the ingredient that you don't know, and it will tell you the toxicity range of that ingredient. So that's one thing you can do on your own.
Okay, and I just want to say that I've had the opportunity to use some of your products. First of all, for anybody that has a chance, go check out the website. It's replenishplus.com, because the pricing is, in my opinion, the same as if you're going out and buying the stuff that's killing you. So why wouldn't you invest in the good stuff? But also, when I was using your products, it's really interesting to read what's in them. Like there was one that had like a mushroom in it and stuff like
Okay,
that.
mushroom, yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you can understand the label, which is virtually impossible if you're buying something off the shelf at like the store.
Yeah, and I'll say one other thing about that. The higher the price of the product, like if you go into your dermatologist or your esthetician, whatever, and they carry a product line, they might carry ZO or Dr. Hoshka or whatever it may be. Here's the rule of thumb that I have found, is that the higher the price of the product, the more toxic it is, for a very simple reason. If you're paying $180 for 2 ounces or whatever, $140, you want to see results in a shorter period of time as possible. There is no way to do that by Mother Nature. My products, if you use them, you'll feel it almost instantly on day one, but the results will occur over a 2-week, 3-week, 4-week period. And the way we do it is nutritionalize the skin. You don't want to moisturize the skin. You want to nutritionalize it. If you nutritionalize it, the skin cells get healthy. They can produce their own collagen, their own elastin, and your skin will look better. That's what we do. We nutritionalize. Yes, we moisturize. We have Mother Nature's natural oils, but we nutritionalize. That's the main function of what you're trying to do. And that's really anything that you're buying, anything that you're going to put on your skin. That should be the thought in the back of your head of what you're trying to do for your skin. To nutritionalize it, makes it healthier, and that will make you look younger, give you that better appearance.
Okay, another question for you that came through. So on your website, replenishplus.com, you sell skincare, anti-wrinkle, sunscreen. What do you recommend for like makeup? And are there any companies for going out and buying makeup that are safe?
Well, I haven't, to be honest, I haven't really looked into makeup as deeply as obviously the skincare products. The only thing I will tell you is this: when you're using a makeup, just be concerned. Makeup, by the nature of the beast, is a paint. Okay, it's covering the skin. It's trying to get rid of all the blemishes and all the natural things that are on your skin. My concern with makeup is that if it's too thick, that if it's blocking your pores, then that's what they call comedogenic. Remember, your pores are the things that allow toxins to get out during the day, keeps your body temperature even by evaporation. And you want to be just a little careful of the makeup that you use. And I can't give you the name because the names of them because I haven't studied it. But maybe this is something you can do on the web or whatever. The thicker it is, the more that it covers, the more likely it is comedogenic. And yes, you'll look good for those couple of hours, 4 hours, whatever you're trying to do, but just be concerned about what it's doing to your body. So try to find that in between, something that's not too heavy, but still will give you some of the results you're looking at.
Okay, and then another question that we have is on your website with the different sizes, like, is that a 30-day supply of these creams or what?
Okay, the thing is that the advantage we have is because we're no water, we're anhydrous, you don't need as much on your skin. So our products should last 3 to 4 times the amount of any other jar out there. Do not put a lot on. You don't need it. It's a waste. And you don't want to put it on 10 times a day. You want to put it on in the morning, put it on at night, that's fine. But you don't need to. Once a day, maybe twice at the beginning. So the length of time will last, depending on how you put it on there. Most people get 2 to 3 months out of a jar, depending on how often you use it. Okay,
Great. I hope everybody, first of all, if you're interested in what Robert talked about today, I would recommend going and buying the book because
Which is-
it really delves in deep into everything that he covered today. Where is the best place to buy your book, Beauty Products Can Be Ugly?
I'll tell you, you can get it on my website. All
Okay.
right, that would probably be the cheapest place to buy it, especially if you use the LAER 20 discount. So it's the last item on there. It's on the website.
Okay. Second of all, if you have questions, I was talking to one of our Florida agents who was on our sales meeting a couple of weeks ago when we had Robert on, and she had questions and she said he was great. Like, I had a bunch of questions about what to purchase and he spent time with me figuring out the best direction for me. So we have Robert's email there at info@replenishplus.com, and he can answer any questions. But again, go check out the website, replenishplus.com. When checking out, it's LAER 20, correct, Robert?
LAER 20. Yes, and also on my website, there is an 888 number. If you call that number, if you want to talk to me, that number will go, I'm a small company, so it will go directly to me. So if you have questions, you want to talk to me on the phone for any reason, look at, my goal is to get you the most information for the most protection. If you want to call me directly, feel free, anybody.
All right, great information. I think we just educated a small handful of people who will look differently at skincare products, as I now do, thanks to your book. So thank you so much for spending the time with us this afternoon. Thanks, Robert.
Oh, thank you for having me on, Stacy. Have a good day, all of you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.